Yeah, there's somebody on the website. They're talking about trying morels, like powdered morel mushrooms, to put a meaty flavor into the mead. I don't know. Never looked.
I'd rather just fry them in butter and eat them, thank you. But okay, it's...
Well, that's the thing, though. A lot of foragers make reishi tea, and reishi is a harder mushroom that actually grows on a living tree. So that could be perfectly good.
Yeah, there's a kind of tea I've had that sort of is mushroomy flavored. I can't remember if it's the oolong or the pu'er. One of them. One of the teas I don't drink very often.
Pu'er. Yeah.
But yeah, it almost smells fungusy, but and also I've got a little bit of experience with dried mushrooms, and they don't have quite the same. Depending on the mushroom, they may or may not have the same fungusy flavor when they're dried as they do when they're fresh, or when they're cooked. So yeah, like dried puffball doesn't taste at all fungusy.
Somebody's keyboarding loudly.
Yeah, that was not me.
Man, I thought I had turned off my mushroom.
That was loud and clear. All in caps.
Okay, so we can know. I'll stop asking in the background. Now we know it's Manny. I'll just tell Manny to shut up next time.
See, Manny, aren't you glad you took some time off?
Now that we've outed him,
There, you couldn't hear that one.
Nope, didn't hear that one.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
You and your retro gear,
Yeah, I know, right?
I try to
clicky keyboards.
Okay, so Bobby, what have you got? What have you got in the carboys now?
I'm making a mead for my cousin's wedding, so that was a traditional blueberry and traditional orange blossom.
Okay.
Then I have the apple pecan pie. I have 12 gallons of that.
Oh.
That's going into a bourbon barrel. A boysenberry's coming out of the bourbon barrel. Boysenberry has to be back sweetened.
Okay.
So I'm going to clean out the barrel a little, and I think I'm going to have apple berry pecan pie by the time I put the apple in, because the boysenberry's going to give it a little flavoring. I have a rhodamel. I have that sweetened olive blossom. I don't know. I got to go downstairs and look and see what's still in glass.
I have two questions. What size is that barrel, and how many batches can you get out of a barrel generally?
Well, you can get as many as you want. Just the flavor profile is just going to diminish over time. So what you put in the first time, and you could do in 10 days. The second time, it might take you 30 days. And the third time, it might take you 75 days. But that flavor profile and character is going to go down a little. So I keep a bottle of bourbon and on the side. So that 750 of bourbon I put in a 1.5 liter bottle, and I add a quart of honey, and I add 10 vanilla beans, and I add the bourbon to it. So after I take everything out and clean out that barrel with some hot water, I'll put that in and I'll roll it around a little bit, and then I'll dump that back into the bottle, and I'll reflavor my barrel. And then if I feel that the wood isn't strong enough, I'll add wood after I take it out of the barrel. So if I don't feel the tannins are balancing, then I'll go to, cubes, and I'll taste, in my judgment, what the oak is like coming out. If it's, it's a loose, I might add some French oak, and I figure that tighten up the oak taste a little, give it a little more tannins.
Okay, that's cool. I want to get one. I'm sure a lot of people are curious as to, how much you can get out of one, because they're not cheap when you get them, So it'd be nice. It's good to know you can get a bunch of batches out of it.
You can get a bunch of stuff out of it, but you just have to be careful. Don't put a stout in it the first time you're out, and then the next time you plan on putting a traditional in it, it's just not going to work. And the first batch that you put in is really going to come out, heavily liquored if it's a wet barrel. And I was lucky. I went to somebody I knew, and he dumped the barrels, and he literally dumped them right in front of me. They said, "You still want them wet?" "Oh yeah, leave them wet." So by the time I got it home, there was a pint of bourbon that I poured out into a glass.
Oh wow!
It was a really wet barrel, so I put the mead right in. So,
yeah, you got all those great Hudson River Valley bourbon guys right there, right?
There's a few, yeah. once you build a relationship, and if you do go to one of the distilleries, bring a couple bottles. They like it too.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll remember you next time.
Yeah. Well, and they'd like to see what their barrels have done, I would think.
So I always
Especially-
if I take stuff out of the barrel and I go back there, like I brought John Torkington a couple barrels when I went down and visited him in Delaware. I brought the guys up stuff that came out of the barrels, and they all popped it open, they tasted it. It's always nice to share.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm going to have to make like a special trip up to New York and just try to like catch you when you're not surrounded by people going, hey, I'll take that.
No, it's not that bad.
No, but it does
my
seem
home
to
brew
be
club
any
is funny.
faster than I can get to it and get a try, a taste,
Well, those rooms, there's 100 people in the room.
Yeah,
You open
I
a
know.
20-ounce bottle.
Doesn't take
They
long.
go, oh, can I try that? Sure. No, it doesn't take long at all.
Yeah.
Mhm. I'll
So
try to get
I
up.
was talking with Sergio the other day, and we're trying to get a mead event down in New York City. And we spoke to one of the brewer owners that we know, and we're trying to use his brewery to have some kind of mead event. We were going to try to do it for August 5th on National Mead Day, but it doesn't look like it's going to turn out on that, so we might do something in September or October.
No, I'd be more
We're gonna
likely
get-
then. I don't get back to my side of the country until later in August, so.
Yeah, so I spoke to the guys up at 810 Mead Works. They were interested. I spoke to one of the other guys, not that Dylan Sprouse, one of the other guys at All Wise. He said he would be interested. Sergio was interested. I talked to one of the distributors that handles a lot of mead. He said he was open to it. So we're going to try to make something happen where we get a little exposure for mead and what's going on in New York, New Jersey, and the tri-state area.
Nice.
I think that would be nice. Do a tap takeover for a day and maybe a couple bottles and pours. And, we're still trying to figure out the details.
That would be cool. Looks like we've got a question from David Webb, and he says he's got a Trojniak in the fermenter, and he's planning on adding it to a fresh single malt barrel, which means a short aging time, and asks you, do you recommend aging it like mead like that for a short time, or use the barrel first and get longer aging?
Well, I really don't have an answer for him, and I would say put it in the barrel and taste it often, and decide what you like. If you don't like that heavy whiskey, the single malt, well, then it's probably only going to be in for a short time. But if you do like it and you do like the way it's going, then leave it there.
Doesn't it also
I'm
depend
a
on the
firm
size?
believer, and you have to taste it all the time
Yeah.
and get what you like. And if you don't like the where it's going, then pull it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the size of the barrel, too. The smaller the barrel, the quicker the flavor, right? Infuses, no?
Well, that's true. But if you really don't like where it's going, or if I was him and I was indecisive, I would just split the batch in two. Take some oak cubes, soak them in the whiskey that I'm looking for. Take them out of the whiskey, I'd wash them off, and I would throw them in.
That's true. That'll work.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
The
add
one
the
thing I
whiskey
try
because
and
I
do
feel
when-
it not with the hard spirits. I feel that after you throw the oak in, if you ever taste the spirits afterwards, it picks up a lot of tannin, very strong tannin from the wood.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people when you do it, I wash off my cubes for 30 seconds underwater after I take them out of the alcohol before I add them. And if you ever let the oak cubes soak in the alcohol, taste the alcohol after you take the cubes out. It's very, very tannic, and I find it to the point where it's displeasing.
Is it because the alcohol is leaching tannins out of the wood? Is that what's going on?
That's the way I perceive it. And maybe there's some people who like that, but I don't particularly care for it.
To me, that's a lot like these people that like their IPAs with as many hops as can be crammed into the bottle. And I think that I can see the whole let's showcase the wood and the whiskey at the same time. I prefer more balance.
I would definitely go for balance.
Yeah.
As I recall, the oaking advice that was always given, a few years ago when I was really heavily on the forums, was that you should always go a little bit further than you want to go, because it will age out rather, or it will soften back rather quickly. Do you find that, or do you just go to where you like the taste and stop it there?
Well, I go to where I like the taste. I'm the one who's drinking it. And anybody can say whatever they want.
The idea was that it would change. It would soften off really quickly. So you'd normally go a little bit further, so it softened back to where you wanted it. Is that a practice that you do, or?
No, not really. And I get it right around where I want it. But how long do you have to age it to soften it? Out of like a 12-gallon barrel that I use, I end up with in a 500 milliliter box, I come up to 75, 80 bottles. So I'm going to age a lot of mine. I have 1,000 bottles in my basement of mead that's made. So I'm not going to drink the whole. That's not going to be the only mead that I have, and I'm going to drink it very quick. So if it goes over a little, yeah, I could sit on something for a year. It's not going to bother me at all.
Okay. You don't plan for that, though, is what I was
No, I do not. I take it out when I think it's ready, and that's it.
Well, and I think you're right with the, tasting is paramount in a case like that. You've got to be watching it, because I know I've had meads that oaked up in no time flat, like a few days, and others that took weeks. It depends on the mead. It depends on the recipe and the yeast you're using, and there are so many variables that can affect how fast something oaks up. And then I use cubes or spirals because I don't have a barrel, but I think it's really important. I think a lot of people don't realize that this can happen quick. Like, real quick.
Yeah.
Don't you have a Chateau plywood that proves that theory, AJ?
Oh, yes, because I used the 5-gallon recipe with a 3-gallon batch. Now, I'd only diluted a wine kit out to 3 gallons instead of the full 5 gallons to make something that was along the lines of an ice-style wine. And then I put all of the oak chips in for the allotted time instead of, cutting it in half. And now I'm a little more conservative about... now, I only use oak chips right now, but what I tend to do is I put in half as much as I think I want and then leave it twice as long. And that way that way... I'm a neglectful mead maker. I tend to forget about batches and not rack them. As a testament to this, the bomb I started a year ago that's still in its bucket. So I actually do factor that into the way I make mead sometimes, and it's like, okay, you know what? I can't possibly hurt this with only this much oak.
Did you ever use the cubes, or do you prefer the chips?
I have never used the cubes because they're not as easy to find around here.
Oh, you can get them on more beer. Send them right to your house.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm one of those weirdos who doesn't do a whole lot of ordering online. I like to actually go to my brew shops, and there's a number of them, but most of them have chips. And I'm going to look into it, but I don't use it very often.
How does everybody feel about spirals?
I like them.
I love them.
Yeah,
I use them all the time.
You get the most surface area for your money,
Yep.
Do they fit in a carboy easily? Come back out when they're done?
Yeah, they're just
problem.
bitty little spirals. Okay. They're just teeny tiny little things.
Yeah, I throw a 3-gallon spiral in a 5-gallon. Usually get medium toast Hungarian, and throw the 3-gallon size in the 5-gallon carboy. It's perfect. You can't over oak. It's great.
Never had a problem. What are you saying, Bobby?
I'm gonna.
What's that?
You started to say something, and I think we overrode you.
Oh, I've never used the spirals.
Okay. You just cubes mainly when you're not using a barrel?
I like the cubes, yeah. I like the cubes. I have the cubes, and I think I have 4 or 5 barrels.
Okay. How long do you soak your cubes for when you're soaking them in spirits?
Well, I leave them. I have mason jars with the cubes in them.
Oh,
okay. And I leave the spirits right in. I leave them, and when I want them, I take them out.
That's a really good idea.
Do you reuse them, or is it always single use?